Welcome to the Romancing Like Swift podcast, where we talk craft and the business of being an author while fangirling over Taylor Swift. We're your hosts, Morgana, Bevan,
and Emily Jane. On this podcast, we'll discuss what authors can learn from Taylor Swift. There are many amazing Taylor Swift podcasts in existence. We know this, but our focus is on mining Taylor Swift's lyrics and business practices for tips to help our fellow authors excel in their careers.
Today we've got Chelle Honiker with us to share everything she's learned from Taylor Swift. Welcome to the show, Chelle.
Hi, nice to be here. Thanks, guys.
I'm so glad to have you on. I have no idea where today's going to go. I'm with you. I don't think there's ever any preparing for where things might go.
I do wing it a lot, that's for sure. I've been told I'm a nonlinear speaker, which in my mind just means it's chaotic, but it sounds really impressive if you say it that way.
Yeah, it does. Why don't you tell us about yourself, and for those that find the podcast that have never heard of you or Indie Author Magazine, and tell us about yourself.
I am the co-founder and publisher of Indie Author Magazine. Our tagline is "When Writing Means Business." We are a business journal and publication for writers that are looking to learn how to build their business and how to define their own success and how to be a better writer in every aspect of it, and a better business person too. I'm also the co-founder of Indie Author Training. We're an education marketplace. So we have educators from all over the industry that come, and you can find courses and community there. And then I'm also the programming director for Author Nation this year, which is the largest indie author conference. They say in the States, but I really do think it's the world. Maybe the universe. But we have a conference in Vegas every November now. This year it's November 11th through the 15th at the Horseshoe. And we have over 150 speakers and sessions and a reader event and vendor day. I mean, it's an entire thing. So we're excited about that.
Chelle, I don't think you have enough on your plate.
Oh, yeah. I'm often accused of having a buffet and not a plate. It was a plate, then it was a platter, now it's a buffet. So.
Wow. I said that this would go out when we were at Author Nation. It's not. It's the week before.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, so that'll be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so if you're listening and you're in Vegas or near Vegas, you should come to the Rave event.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Rave is our Friday event. It's our reader event. It actually kicks off Thursday night with an appearance by Kevin Smith, the notable indie creator. He's most known for his directorial endeavors, but really he is just a prolific. He's a writer and a speaker and a creator. So we're excited to have him on Thursday night. And then Friday is our all-day reader event. And Joe Solari, the managing director, and the team has put together just a phenomenal slate of authors that are going to come and readers that are going to come. And we're really excited to see that roll out. We've had several reader events before. Rave is not new, so it's just going to be bigger and better than ever.
Yeah. And you should also come and find me or Emily for a Romancing Like Swift sash to go on your badge.
Yeah.
Turn this to Taylor for a bit. What is your Swift era?
I don't have a defined era. I have found things I discovered her in Red. Red was the first era. I just thought, gosh, her lyrics are so profound. Someone that was at the time in 2012, that young, to be writing things that were so prolific, that spoke to my Gen X heart, my Black little Gen X heart, I thought was really impressive. It was also a way for me to connect. I have 2 daughters, and it was also a way for us to connect and have something to talk about while they were in high school. And we were taking long road trips and going on volleyball adventures. Both of them played Junior Olympic club level volleyball. So we had lots of time in the car. It was just a really wonderful way for us to connect and listen to it and sing along and sparkle together. So that was the first era that we loved. As my daughters have gotten older, as they've both gotten married, I have now a granddaughter. We've kind of woven in through each of the eras. I personally love Evermore and Folklore. I kind of combine those two together. That era spoke to me very deeply because we were all hunkered down. We were all trying to figure out what was going on in the world. And here were these 2 albums that sort of dropped, and it was something to look forward to. And then the second album dropped. And I remember waking up and just dancing around my living room with my kid because she had graduated uni in the middle of the pandemic, and it was a nightmare for all of us. And it was just sort of a beacon of hope and interesting songs, and seeing someone that the whole pandemic was no respecter of money or time or anything. We were all sort of in it together. So it was interesting to see how somebody with resources was getting through it just the same way we were, which is to create, which was to write, which was to pour our hearts out and try and figure all this out. So those were great. Now my daughters and I have our chat is called the Tortured Poets Department chat. So we've renamed our chat Tortured Poets Chat. So that's neat. And I think it is really interesting that we've got our little fandom. We didn't go to the Eras tour. We went to the Eras film, and we're near San Antonio and Austin. So we went to a place that serves food and drinks. It's called Alamo Draft House. So we went and danced and dressed up and had an absolute blast. So
I'm in Austin also. I love Alamo.
I love Alamo.
Yeah.
It's the absolute best. It really is. It's just the absolute best. Yeah. So those are sort of my eras. She can't miss. I mean, she can't miss.
Yeah, that's what it's become, definitely. And you're right. There was just something about folklore and the way it dropped, the time and a place. It made it extremely emotional, but also I wasn't a Swiftie when folklore dropped. So folklore is my era. It's when I became a Swiftie. And yeah, there was just something profoundly different to the norm. I think it was really the fact that she was getting into that album without thinking about singles and hits. Mm-hmm. She was just writing because, like us, if authors stop writing, we'll go insane. That's very much the impression I got from her with Folklore and Evermore. She just couldn't stop.
I also got the impression that was when she really leaned into collaborations with Jack Antonoff and with Aaron Dessner. And I love that she leaned into that. And she really had such a moment where she was acknowledging their contributions. And you can hear both of their works coming through in different songs. She's very collaborative, which is one of the things that I really think I admire about her and her work in general is how much she collabs with other people and how she really does a great job of lifting them up. She's a fan and she collabs with people. And I think indie authors have that opportunity as well. That's one of the lessons that I've learned from her.
I think Folklore and Evermore were also both about her kind of taking control of her creativity and her creative process and those kinds of things. Not so much her career, because I think she started taking control of her career before that, but definitely her taking control of her creativity and doing what she really wanted to do, I would argue. And I think part of how that came out of the pandemic is we were all looking for ways to have more control over our lives because there was this big thing we had no control over. That's my theory anyway, that I developed just recently.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think, too, she leaned into her power because she didn't want to be stereotyped as a pop princess. She didn't want to be stereotyped as a formulaic churning hit after hit after hit, pop after pop after pop out. She put out things that resonated with her, and they were almost, and you sort of see this with people tend to distill it down to like breakup songs sometimes, where she's saying what happened in a breakup and we're all sort of analyzing what happened. None of us know. It's a parasocial relationship. But I think for her, what struck me with that is she didn't put out just another catchy pop song. She had moody things in there, and she bucked probably what other record labels would ask her to do, which is to put out the same sort of thing. And if it's working, don't break it. Keep doing the same thing. And she didn't. You're right. She leaned into her own creativity and she did exactly what she wanted to do.
Yeah. I think, was that the first time she directed after the pandemic? Because I know she did the 10-minute version of All Too Well. She directed that and wrote the whole thing. I don't know if she directed before the pandemic, but now, so we're recording this in September, and literally last night, Taylor sweeped the VMA Awards.
She did.
7 awards, Artist of the Year for the, second year in a row, and Tortured Poets Department won Best Video, which she also directed. When you say about collaborations, her and Post Malone, that collaboration was just something else.
It's also noteworthy, too, that she is a genuine fan of other people's music. It's not performative. When she's dancing to like last night to Katy Perry, she knows the words. She listens to their music. She has an appreciation of their music. And I think she has an appreciation of Post Malone's music. She's not limited by anything. She listens to all of it. There's a quote that Lady Gaga said, or an interview that I read about recently, where she said that when she first met Taylor Swift and Taylor said, I really like your music, and she quoted something, and Lady Gaga said, oh yeah, everybody says that. She thought it was just kind of a nicety on the red carpet that you say to another artist. And then Lady Gaga went away and read an article later where Taylor was quoting her lyrics and talking in depth about Lady Gaga's music with a deep understanding as a fan of her music. And she said, I had such a great appreciation for that. It wasn't performative. It really was artist to artist appreciation. And I think that's another thing that Taylor does very genuinely, is she absorbs other people's music and it informs and makes her a better artist. There's so many lessons that we can glean from the way that she does things. And I think one of the things that I love about it is that it all seems like it's organic. It just stems from the fact that she loves what she does and she loves the people that she does it for. And she wants to cultivate a whole entire ecosystem of enjoyment.
Yeah.
So I want to jump on one of the words you used that I think is important. And you said genuine, like she's a genuine fan. And I think that's important for us because readers have such a highly tuned instinct for whether or not an author or another person loves the same things they love. And I think romance readers do in particular. And I'm going to contribute this to the fact that romance readers get a lot of shit from other people in their lives for reading romance. Therefore, we've developed this instinct for whether or not people respect the same things we love. When you're dealing with other readers and fans and other writers, we know when someone is being genuine about their love for the writing and their love for whatever genre we love. And we can sense that. And we as authors sense it. And that comes from us as readers as well. And when you're dealing with readers, I feel like you really have to be totally genuine. Like as an author in social interactions on social media or in person or whatever, but also as an author in our books. If you try and write something you don't love, the readers will know.
Yeah, agreed. And to that end, coming back to authenticity, it also stems from her having some carefully, for example, she endorsed Kamala Harris this week. And I think we as indie authors sometimes struggle with how much do we put out? How much do we say? How much are we going to turn off people by those things? Maybe things we put in our books, maybe social media presences. We do run the risk of that. With everything that you put out there, you run the risk of alienating people, especially if you take a stand in certain political arenas. But I think what she's done, and I think this is a lesson for us, is she put out a very, very well-worded statement that said, I have done my research. This is what I'm doing. I encourage you to also do your research. And more importantly, I just encourage you to vote, to become part of it.
She also said, I didn't do this until I had to do it.
Right.
She made it clear that she was not doing this to piss off people. She was not doing this to sway votes. She was doing this because the candidate she was not endorsing had promoted an AI of her. And she was like, I just need it to be crystal clear who I endorse.
Right.
And I think that tempered, maybe we'll see, criticism that she might have gotten about, oh, well, she's trying to take on more power than she needs or whatever. Her message, like you said, was so well crafted that it didn't come to me. Of course, I appreciated the message, but to me, it didn't come off at all as like, I'm trying to elbow my way into politics. It came off as, I have a stake in this game and I have to stand up for transparency and truth. And I have to make my stance clear, because if I don't make my stance clear, other people will co-opt my power.
Right.
And she is so much about like, yeah, exactly.
And the other thing that I thought was very well timed was it was after the debate. She came at it from the perspective of an informed voter. She had listened to every perspective that she needed to before she came out with the statement that she did. So a lesson for indie authors is only you can make the decision as to what you're going to allow in your business and what you're going to do and how you're going to say it. And it is important to have some crisis management up front and be ready for those inevitable crises so that you can respond instead of react.
Yeah.
Because she could have put something out back when the AI generated image was there. And then it would have been just a firestorm, an explosive gasoline moment. But she didn't. She waited. She didn't react. She waited and she responded. And then now the direct result of that is in the last 24 hours since she's put that out, over 350,000 people have gone to the voter registration link that she linked in her Instagram post. And it's probably moved the needle on new first-time registrants to vote.
You're going to make me cry.
I'm just really in awe of how she is able to deftly navigate these, because as a woman, she's constantly told to shut up and sing, stay in your lane, shut up and sing, stay out of it. And yet we go back to even the era of the Dixie Chicks, now the Chicks, who were told to stay in their lane and shut up and sing. And we saw how that's played out. We have lots of lessons from Tay-Tay.
The sad thing with this whole situation is there's Swifties, and I'm going to piss people off here, supposed Swifties in the groups attacking Taylor for making a statement. And that to me, like, you'd think her views are extremely clear. Miss Americana exists.
Absolutely. She was absolutely clear about her support for Marsha Blackburn's opponent. And the quote that she comes back with is, if I'm going to lose support by supporting someone that's against homophobia and racism and bigotry, then I lose support. She's fine with that.
One of the things that I appreciated, and I wish that everyone appreciated, was she never once told everyone else how to vote.
Exactly.
She was just clear on register, vote, make up your own mind, and this is what I am doing. I like, Morgana, how your voice put air quotes around supposed Swifties, because we all know there are trolls out there. I'm sure that there are lots of trolls out there who are not real Swifties, who are just trying to poke the bear. And the more we can ignore them, the better, because I feel like probably most actual real Swifties appreciate her stance, even if they don't agree with it. And obviously they're allowed to not agree with it. They're allowed to have their own opinion. And she made that clear also. Like I said, she didn't tell anybody what to do. She just voiced her opinion. And I thought it was super classy and super well done. And I have two kids, one who's just of voting age. This will be her first presidential election, and one who's not yet of voting age. And they both reacted very positively to it. They were like, this is awesome. This is amazing. And I think, I could be wrong, this could be only my kids, because my kids both have ADHD and both have a touch of pathological demand avoidance. But I think a lot of people in this generation don't like being told what to do, but they like being informed.
Yeah.
And maybe that's actually just all teenagers through the history of time. That's probably what it is. And
I think you're right about that. I think, too, the other thing that I appreciated about it was she had gone to the U.S. Open just a few days before that and sat with Brittany Mahomes, who is her boyfriend's teammate's wife. By example, she was there and showing, hey, we don't agree, but I can still coexist. I can still have fun with this person. I can still hang out with this person. I'm not going to shun this person because of their political beliefs. And I think that was probably the most emotionally mature response. By example, her actions said it all. She didn't have to say, I'm besties with Brittany Mahomes. She just was. She just existed in that space, which I think, again, going back to teenagers, they see what you do more so than being told. They want to be shown. And I think that was probably the best example that could have come out of it.
Absolutely.
I think, too, it's been interesting to see now, also, just to pivot a minute to Linkin Park, who, for those that don't know, had a lead singer, Chester Benningfield, that passed away. He took his life, and it's been 7 years. And Linkin Park came back with a new album coming out and a new lead singer. And the lead singer is a female, and she sounds like herself, but she's able to play and sing some of those. And the division between people, we talk about true Swifties versus, I mean, it's the same thing that's going through Linkin Park, and Mike Shinoda's trying to navigate that as well. And it takes a really strong person, her name is Emily Armstrong, to say, I'm not Chester. I never will be. No one will ever be. I can't take his place, but I can honor his memory and we can make new music and we can sound really good and keep his legacy alive through this. It's interesting to see how, again, women are held to such a different standard.
Yeah.
Such a different set of rules. The bar just keeps moving and the goalposts keep moving. It's just fascinating to watch people cling to their perceived ideals of what they think music should be and how bands should behave.
I think this speaks to how important women's fiction is, be it straight up women's fiction or sci-fi fantasy with a women's slant or straight up romance. We need our stories being told because we need that community of readers and like-minded people and all of that kind of stuff. And most of all, because we need entertainment. We need stories that are designed for us and entertain us, which is obviously not to say men can't read our books. They absolutely can. We're getting our driveway repaved, and the guy who came down, I guess he asked what I did, and I told him I write romance, and he was like, and this is like Texas redneck kind of dude. And he's like, just a couple of years ago, I started reading romance, and I really love them. And I think they're helping with my vocabulary, and they're helping with keeping my brain sharp because I have type 1 diabetes, and it's really important that I have intellectual stimulation. It was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
I love that.
Right?
That is amazing.
And not where I thought it was going.
Yeah, I know. I would never have pegged him as a romance fan, but amazing for him. Fantastic. But, which is obviously to say our books are amazing and everyone should be reading them. But also to say that if you're a woman and you're not reading romance, you should be, because it's an amazing genre.
And it's encouraging that there are so many men that are now taking that leap and discovering things, because it makes them a more empathetic partner. It makes them a better friend. It makes them a better spouse. It makes them a better whatever. And that really is the power of romance in a lot of ways. It's the ideal.
There are studies that show that if you read books where the main character is different from you in any kind of way, it triggers the empathy centers in your brain. It makes you a more empathetic person in general. So it's great when men can read romance. And I don't know, I guess we should all be reading more shifter books.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
100%. One of my favorite TikTokers is a guy named Andrew, and he has done the entire ACOTAR series. He's read through the entire ACOTAR series. He is so hilarious in the way that he summarizes them. And you can tell that he's a genuine fan, and he rates it, and he will distill it down to the most hilarious sound bites. But I will watch his book reviews over anybody else's because he really does get it. He's just now starting to get into Fourth Wing. He's also a lawyer, like his day job is a lawyer. So, he's often like, that is a liability, sending all those children across a parapet. He's got such a funny take on all of it. But I can absolutely, he's an ideal book boyfriend come to life, honestly. He's great.
Do you guys follow the law firm out of Georgia, I think, that does, I can't remember what they call it, but it's legal questions. It's like literary legal questions. And they'll have everyone in the office debating things about, could Hogwarts have been sued for the Goblet of Fire? Or, I mean, they're just hysterical and they're awesome.
Deep questions.
These deep questions, and it's like, well, in the wizarding world, the age of consent is 17. Yeah. And so it's like, there's liability questions about Hogwarts is a really common one. But then there's other ones, like recently they had one about if the Malfoys would have been legally responsible for the chaos Dobby caused in the Dursleys' house at the beginning of book 2, because he is their servant, would they have been legally responsible for that kind of stuff? And they break it down and everybody has a different opinion. It's hysterical and adorable.
And of course, my question is going to be, is he classified as a freelancer? Do I have to issue a 1099 at the end of the year? Or is he an employee? What kind of benefits? Do we need insurance for Nagini? There's so many questions you would have to go through and answer. I'm going to go look that up. That's my jam right there.
I was going to sidestep slightly on the point of men not understanding romance and women being held to a higher regard. Last night, I was literally having a conversation with people who don't understand how authors market on TikTok. Say, completely people outside the book world, they wouldn't understand. And they're trying to tell me to the whole concept of pillars, or you talk about topics outside of your books to promote. And I'm like, if I did that on TikTok and suddenly I have a bunch of men in my TikTok, my comment spaces would be on fire and I would be screaming, losing my mind every night, trying to deal with the unhinged comments from trolling men accusing us of basically writing porn. It's weird. It's nice to have role models like Taylor Swift and Beyonce, like the women that are very much now in a period of their lives where they know their shit and are not taking crap from anybody. And I feel like we're nicely isolated in the romance space that we have that, but it's good to have more of it.
The one thing that she does that I think she does very well is she's got the song If I Was a Man, obviously. And she calls out some basic truths of things, absolutely truisms, but she doesn't bash over the head with that. She doesn't make it her whole personality, and she's not being so divisive that it becomes something that people can put a stake in the ground and say, oh, she just hates men. She doesn't. That's not the case. She's calling out a truth, and she's taking ownership of her own career, and she collabs with people, and she continues on. I think the takeaway for me is she walks such a difficult path. And when she says, I keep my side of the street clean, she absolutely does. That's really what she does. She makes sure that she's not hurting anybody, but she's absolutely going to speak her truth at the same time. So thank God for Tree Payne, man, because we all need a Tree Payne. We all need that publicist to kind of help us navigate those deep waters.
Yeah, we do. We definitely need one. What lessons do you think that authors should be taking from Taylor?
I think the biggest one, and I think this is kind of one that we're seeing over and over and over again, is own your shit, own your own stuff, right? Have a wide mentality, have a direct mentality, really think about how you control all of your IP, and then think about ways that you can repurpose and repackage things the way that she's done. So you can sell box sets, or you could sell special editions, and you can sell subscriptions. I mean, there's just, I know other guests have covered that, but I think owning it is the biggest lesson and the biggest takeaway and the biggest thing that you as an author can do for your own career.
Yeah, like really exploiting the IP and looking at all the avenues we have available to us, yeah. And retaining, I guess, as much of that as we can, because Taylor is in a fortunate position now where she started. She started out pretty much owned by the labels, and now she's in a position where, yes, she's signed to a label, but she's really acting like an indie because she does whatever. She's too big. They can't control her. She does whatever she wants with the backing of a record label.
Yeah. But she's also built up a team that has given her great advice over the years. So it's not like she's gone completely rogue. She's built a network and a system of trusted people and trusted advisors around her that they all have the same goal, which is her goal. She set the vision as a leader, and then she's assembled a team to kind of move everybody in the same direction. I also think that they're not afraid to tell her if she's going to make a mistake. That's the other thing that I sometimes feel she does pretty well, is if she has situations that come up, like when she had the fan that passed away in Brazil, she immediately responds to that. She responds with empathy, and she responds without it being fanfare. And it comes back to the question of authenticity. She responds to things in a way that makes you understand that she really is trying to do the right thing. And because she's trying to do the right thing and she set that vision, everybody that's around her will also come alongside her and do the right thing with her. And I think it would take an enormous amount of trust to build a team like that. And she trusts those people to tell her, hey, that might not be the right move, or hey, you need to think about this. Like we saw in Miss Americana, where she was sitting down and talking about her politics. They were saying, just so you know, these could be the repercussions. And she said, yeah, I get it. Thank you. I'm still going to do that. That kind of getting out of your own echo chamber, I think, as authors is really good. We need to be able to take criticism well. We need to take it from our editors. We need to take it from our PR, our ARC readers, our beta readers. We need to be able to let them give us good advice. That's what they're there for. And if you're setting the vision of this is what you want, then it's important that you have trusted advisors around you. You listen to them. And when they give you good advice, parse it and then take it, because they're there to help you succeed.
Yeah. And I think that we can all think of creatives and other people who have not done a good job of that, who've not done a good job of keeping trusted people around them who tell them when it's time to shush or how to craft their message. Or my husband and I have this discussion often, and my kids as well, about different people who we admire in one facet of their career, but we're like, they really need someone beside them who just says, shh, now's time to stop. That's an opinion you should keep to yourself. And Taylor, I think, has done an amazing job of crafting her external persona so that we get a feeling of this is genuinely her, but let's face it, there are probably things we don't need to know.
Right.
Right. For all I know, this is a just random, for example, but extrapolated in your brain. She may hate Brussels sprouts, but we don't know. And maybe there's some contingent of Brussels sprout farmers who would be enraged to find out that she hates Brussels sprouts. But that's a thing she's decided the fans don't need to know. And she's quiet about. And she would do a great job about it, even if she did come out. I'm sure her opinion would be like, find a vegetable you love. Or whatever it would be. I am so spitballing this now, but you get what I'm saying. And I think that, again, she has that collaboration with other people in her team who do a fantastic job of helping her craft her message so that it is genuine, it is authentic, and it is still palatable.
Right. And I think that's come from a lot of hard lessons that she's learned, especially with the Kim Kardashian and Kanye West, where she wasn't in control of the narrative and she went up against another bigger, at that time, PR machine that overwhelmed and weaponized the fan base. I think that's the other thing that she does not do is she doesn't seek to weaponize her fan base. And because of that, even though it is a parasocial relationship, we all feel like we know her. We all feel like we could have coffee with her. We all feel like we would be best friends. We're not. We know that. We're not. But there are other
fans. Shut your mouth.
I know. Sorry.
She could totally be my best friend.
Totally. Absolutely. 100%.
To speak to your point about how we all feel like we are.
But to be fair, there are times when she is on Tumblr and she reposts somebody or responds to somebody. It is very random and she does have that connection with people. But I think it's very carefully curated. And I think she does a very good job of keeping that boundary. And I think, for example, Chapel Roan, who had to come out and say, hey, stop touching me in public. Hey, stop stalking me. Hey, we're not best friends. I think that was a young woman that's certainly trying to navigate a newfound fame and a newfound sense of this. And that's got to be absolutely terrifying to go from busking to headlining ACL all in the span of 8 or 9 months. There are lessons to be learned from how you put out a highlight reel and let people see what you want them to see and then keep back what you need to keep back. I think too, just to that point, you saw two extremes with that. One with Joe, who was completely out of the limelight, wanted nothing out there, clamped everything down. She basically had a bag over her head when they went to dinner. To Travis, who now escorts her everywhere, opens doors for her,
gets on stage.
Her. The difference is kind of night and day. And I think she's thriving because of that. I think she really is thriving because of that. So, like I said, it is a parasocial relationship, but you can see cues and you can see things that make her happy. And we're all happy because she's happy. Who doesn't love love?
And to spin that back to books, I think we're in an interesting space right now with this whole concept of authors are taking off. And there's a thing this week with TikTok. A TikToker is pissed off that an author, Elsie Silver, blocked them because they tagged them in a negative post about the books. And I think when it comes to Chapel Roan and the boundaries they are setting, I think authors need to start setting more boundaries for ourselves in that we are starting to say, don't tag me in anything that's negative. If it's critical, I don't want to know. And I think we're all getting into a space where we're much more appreciative of our mental health and would rather block somebody who is dragging that down than worry about the consequences of that person taking affront because they have this concept that they have the right to destroy this author's mental health, because that's what it is. It's having a right to send the arrows in.
And I think part of it too is, again, coming back to that parasocial relationship, you've read something of that author's. You don't know who that author is. But I think part of what makes this industry really great is that there are no barriers or boundaries between us and our readers. We don't have gatekeepers anymore. We have a direct relationship. But I think the most mentally healthy authors will establish those boundaries before they start to build their fandom. They will have 2 Facebook profiles. One is their personal profile that they protect and they hide, and the other is their public persona. And their public persona gets the highlight reel and they get to see behind the scenes a little bit, but they're not going to give them their kid's social security number, or they're not going to tell them where their kids go to school. I mean, those are 2 very different sorts of things. And I think one of the best things authors can do is act as if they are already successful, act as if they're already E.L. James or Rebecca Yarros, act as if you're already that level of success so that you don't have to think about how to protect yourself in the meantime. Start with that strategy in mind first and craft those things in advance so that when you get to that level of fame, and I'm manifesting it for everybody, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about somebody showing up on your doorstep and asking you if you're that person or scaring your kids or whatever weird stuff happens. There are weird things.
I do have a friend who had people show up on her doorstep.
Oh, yeah.
They found out she lived nearby and they brought her pie, which is sweet, but also a little bit
also creepy.
Yeah, yeah. I also wanted to add on the topic of that review thing. And unfortunately, this is not something you know until you know, but everybody's barometer for what level of criticism and reviews they can take and that kind of thing differ. You don't know what yours is going to be until you are in there. But once you know, not only is it totally okay to set that standard, but it's also okay to, if you're not someone who can take bad reviews, to have a trusted friend or a partner or it doesn't have to be someone you hire, an assistant or your bestie or whatever who can read things for you. And weirdly, I am one of those people who I prefer to read bad reviews. Let me rephrase that. I do not prefer to get bad reviews. I prefer to get amazing reviews. But if there is a bad review out there, I want to understand the content so that I can adjust things if I need to. Every once in a while, and I know, Morgana, you so want to say something. Let me finish my thought. And then I love to hear what you have to say. But every once in a while, I had to comment because I saw your expression and I was like, ooh, she's got something good to say. Every once in a while, I've read a negative review or a negative comment about my work. And I've been like, damn, I agree with that. Once upon a time, I have a series of post-apocalyptic vampire YA. One of the reviews of the first book was like, hey, I wish there were more people of color. And I was like, damn, so do I. And then I was like, well, I'm in control of that. So in book 2, there are going to be more people of color. Things like that. I really want to know. Of course, if the review is something like egregiously not really about the book, but about the reviewer, that helps too, because I can be like, okay, there are some 2-star reviews or 1-star reviews that are not about me and not about the book and not about the quality of my work. I like being able to read them and step aside from that and be like, okay, this comes down to a know yourself thing, right? And you don't know until you know. But once you know, it's totally reasonable to set that standard for yourself of, I am going to read these. I'm not going to read these. I'm going to track when I need to step aside, all of that stuff. Okay.
I think the key with that is you choose to look at negative reviews. So you choose when you look at them. You're in a mental space and you're going to look at them. When somebody tags you and you open your Instagram and unexpectedly it's in your face, like personal experience, it doesn't even have to be a negative review. I burnt out February 2023 and February 2022, that long ago. So I burnt out, and one of the triggering factors that pushed me over the edge was one of my ARC reviewers tagging me in a 4-star review. But it was a critical 4-star review that highlighted a bunch of things that my first editor had highlighted, and I had creatively decided that just were irrelevant. But these were points that were kept being brought up in all of my frigging reviews. 4 or 5, didn't matter. Somebody was mentioning it. It was like I manifested this into my life and now it was destroying me. To this day, they're not things that I would change. But it kept getting thrown in my face. So then this person tags me and it's thrown at me, and it was my pushing point over the line of burnout. But that was a case of like, sometimes it doesn't even have to be a low star review. Sometimes the good reviews have something negative and they push you over and you don't expect it. That one there, just on a normal day, if I didn't already have this cool issue with having fired that editor because she completely missed the point of the book, if this whole thing wasn't there, I wouldn't have reacted the same way. It would have just gone straight over me. It's just a thing, it's an opinion, whatever. But because I had all this background baggage, it really stabbed at me. And a reader doesn't know that. They don't know that that's going to cause that reaction. So that's where I kind of go, I'm just going to stay away from all reviews. When I'm ready and in a good space to look at them, I will look at them, but I will make that choice.
I have a motto that I adhere to religiously, and that is, what people think of me is none of my business. None of my business. I don't look at reviews. I have other people look at them and surface up any criticisms that truly have to do with how we can do something better or how we can work better or how we can present information better. I'm in a different position because I've got nonfiction. It is a little bit different because it's sort of binary. It's either fact or not fact. We don't insert our subjective opinions into a lot of this. But I think for a lot of authors, their work, they don't see it as a commercial widget, right? It's not a sticker. It's not a pen. It's not a Post-it note. It's their thoughts. It's their emotions. It's their world. It's their ideas. It's their imagination come to life. And if you are, I think for a lot of authors, even reading any criticism whatsoever is perceived as a criticism of them and it hurts them. That's my tactic I've just chosen. I don't want to know what people think of me. I want to know if you have something that can make the work better, but I have other people look at that. I will get spun up. I will get very hurt.
Yeah, I want to say I absolutely did not mean to minimize, and I hope I did not, the experience of authors who don't want to read negative reviews.
No, you didn't at all.
I think for me, it comes to at what point am I sensitive to that? I am way more sensitive to criticism at the editorial stage, which is not helpful because I absolutely have to get editorial from my editor. And a tip, I guess, from my near 30 years of being in this career now, one of the things that helps me about criticism at that stage, because I do get very spun up in criticism at the editorial stage. I spiral in despair of, am I worthy of having the ability to write blah, blah, super whiny. It's very annoying. One of my coping mechanisms for how to deal with that level of annoyingness from myself is to think of the story as not mine. I feel like the story exists. It exists independent of me. And it's my job to just do the best job I can do to convey the story from my angle. Sometimes there are things, and this made me think of what you were talking about, Morgana, about you made an editorial decision about what you were going to change or not change in the story. And if that kinds of thing happens to me where I see someone has pointed out something that could be perceived as a flaw and I've chosen not to address it, my take on it is my view of the story is this one. And there is another version of the story that some other author sees that would address those issues. But I see the story from this one angle. If you think of the story as like a 3D sculpture, and I only have this one perspective of it, someone else may be looking at it from another angle and maybe telling a different version of the same story. But it's not my job to go stand in their spot and tell the story from that perspective. It is only my job to tell the story from my own perspective. And it's an independent thing. It's not mine. It exists in the world without me.
I've heard it referred to as you're just there to write up the incident report.
Yes. Yeah. Somehow that distance helps me a lot. It's like a writer's block management tool, I will say. But I'm prone to that before the book comes out. Once the book comes out, I'm more go with the flow, at peace with it. And like I said, I don't ever want to minimize anyone else's approach to this because it's so personal and you have to protect yourself.
You do. And I think that comes from longevity. And I think it comes from your own confidence growing as you publish more, you feel better about things and you have a handle on it. I think newer authors, don't put yourself through that because you're too close to it. It's your baby for the first few. If somebody calls your baby ugly, you're going to punch them in the face. I mean, I would. Absolutely. So I don't think you minimized it at all. Honestly, I think it's just we're all in different places.
The burnout thing is real. It hits us all at some point, sadly.
And you never know what's going to trigger it either. So it's do what you can. This is the frustrating thing with TikTok. So I make choices to avoid these negative reviews in every space I can until I'm in a mental space to look at it, because I'll start seeing numbers drop and be like, what's happening? And then I go looking. But with TikTok, so I have a bunch of shadow accounts, and the things readers will try to say in TikTok comments, my filters on TikTok are extreme. There are some people that, or the TikTok space, that advise you just to let all the comments go. I can't be opening that and expecting to see somebody trashing my book. I can't handle it. Even if it's a shadow account, it ain't happening. I don't care if it helps the algorithm. It's not happening.
Yeah.
Back to boundaries. That's a boundary I've set for myself. And I use the tools available to ensure that that's right in my face.
It's shocking how people think that they have the right to say whatever they want to say. There's all kinds of debates that can be made and all kinds of things that can be said about whether or not that's actually true, but you're never free from the consequences of those, right? And I think it is, as someone that was born before the internet, it has been a big mind shift to go from polite society to the Wild West free-for-all and the anonymous trolls and bots. And it never ceases to amaze me what people think is okay to say to somebody, commenting on people's, not just their works, but their personalities, their body, their hair, their whatever. Protect your peace is my best advice. Protect your peace. Go live in London for a few years like Taylor did.
We have to set our own boundaries, and for every person, they'll be different. And they'll be different for every stage of our career too. But I really like what you said about planning from the start as if you are that massive blown up author. And the immediate thing I would say to that, and the mistake I see so many people doing, get a PO box, for God's sake.
Oh, right.
Do not put your home address on the bottom of an email. And if you're with Apple, please go to Draft Digital to get the Apple, because nobody needs to be giving out phone numbers and addresses to comply with EU law that Apple is misrepresenting. That's my side soapbox.
Get a Google Voice number.
They're only available to the US.
Get a VPN and then get a Google Voice number.
My additional comment on the P.O. box is just for anyone out there listening who owns a P.O. box company, why do we have to go in to get the bill? Can they not mail the bill to our home address? That feels like that would be helpful to me because
I don't get charged unless they receive something. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah.
I have to pay mine annually. And for some reason, mine is in December, which is the worst month to have like one extra thing on that's my gripe into the universe today but P.O. Box is very useful.
As a digital nomad, I use Anytime Mailbox, not an affiliate, just that's who I use. I have an address. It's a physical address with a PMB post mailbox at the end. They scan what I get in, and then I can see if I want it. I can have them shred it. I can have them forward it. I can have them, they deposit checks for me. It's kind of nice. And I've literally never been there physically ever. So it's not even in the same city that I live.
That sounds amazing. I'm going to Google that the second we end.
We've kept you busy for a while now. Do you have any last thoughts to share before we wrap up?
I just think there has never been a better time to be an indie author. There are more role models than just Taylor, although she is the gold standard for me, but there's never been a better time to be an indie storyteller. And I think reframe that you're not just an author, reframe it so that you're telling stories and you're a storyteller, because there's so many different ways other than publishing books. You have audio, you have video, you have podcasts, you have serials. The world is your oyster now. So figure out the best, most successful way that you can tell your stories and keep at it.
Yeah. And if you haven't listened to Michael's episode on creator economy that will have released last week, that whole episode will help with that whole concept. So the final question we tend to ask is, what Taylor Swift song are you obsessed with right now?
Oh, I Can Do It With a Broken Heart.
Yeah.
It's on repeat consistently.
What about you, Emma?
Someone was forwarding a reel and it was like from one of Travis's games where he does the, you know how to ball, and then she responds with the, I know Aristotle. That spun off a whole me listening to So High School on repeat because I love their interactions. I love, much like Taylor is high from smoking his jokes, I am high from observing their romance.
I love it too. As a romance reader and author, I'm living for this.
Yes.
If another person asks me if it's fake, they will get the same response. Cut your bullshit. How do you fake that, Lesh?
You can't fake that.
She's a performer. She might be able to fake it, but
why would she?
Why would she? Yes.
Exactly.
And just, God, the way he looks at her sometimes is, he gives good eye.
Yeah, you can't fix. Some of those shots are completely in private and should not have been taken. Like, you can't fake that.
He's got golden retriever energy, man. He's got that main character, cinnamon bun boyfriend energy. I love it.
I loved how she name dropped him at the VMA speech as well. So sweet. So me right now, I think I'm going to go with Down Bad because her and her outfit changes literally at the VMAs. I think she was wearing 2 different outfits that had UFOs on them. Full-on UFOs painted displays. The theory now is that Down Bad's going to be the next single. So by the time this releases, we'll know if that was right. So Down Bad is now stuck in my head.
I love it. Well, they're all unskippable.
Yeah, they are. Thank you so much for joining us, Chelle. Where can people find you?
indieauthormagazine.com or indieauthortraining.com or authornation.live.
And yeah, if anybody's coming to Author Nation, remember to come and find us because all of us will be there.
Thanks to Chelle's reference to cinnamon bun heroes, I am now craving a cinnamon roll. So I will have to go, which thank God I don't have in my house, but I may have to go get another coffee and sprinkle some cinnamon in it to fill that urge. And I think with that, we can say farewell and go eat a cinnamon roll if you have one.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Bye.